Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. It is an absolute pleasure to have Allan Knight on the show today. Allan, we met through a networking group, and we didn't have an opportunity to talk on the Zoom, but there's something about you, your energy, that I knew I had to meet you. And so then I reached out so we could have a conversation. And it was really awesome to find out that the way I teach branding, from really knowing who you are, what your personal and business purpose is, your values, your vision, your mission, will put everything else into alignment, whether it's work, personal life, all of that. And that's a lot of what you teach, is knowing yourself so well that you communicate really effectively in business, in relationships, in life. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey into becoming a Zen monk, and then what you did next, what led you to that, and to realizing that your purpose is to help other people see themselves, truly see themselves.
Very good. First of all, thank you so much, and Annika, for having me. We had a great conversation. My life is like that. It's kind of magical. I guess the more I work on myself, and I continue to do that until I call it this Starbucks in the sky. I feel like I want to change Starbucks to another name. I'm not sure. But it's a life journey, and it started when I was very early. I was 13. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, told she had 6 months to live. She lived for probably about 15 years. And my mother was, I guess, my first role model of the power of the human spirit, because I realized there was something about her that radiated from the inside. And these kind of things, you can't put your finger on it. We can put our finger on, we spent 20 years in school and university, learning all kinds of knowledge, but we can't put our hands on or our finger on things like vibe. What's your vibe like? And that's an intangible. So that always impressed me about my mother. When I was 19, I was taking a bachelor in psychology, and I knew that on some level, I really wanted to help people in some way, whether it's going to be through coaching, speaking, training, whatever it be. I didn't know how it was going to shake down. But when I was 19, I was kind of confused. So I took a year off university, traveled the world, went from city to city, country to country, and I kept looking and say, oh, that's really interesting. Is that all there is? That's really interesting. Is that all there is? I always sensed that there was something missing, and that was beyond what I would call the rational material world that we live in. I didn't know at the time, but it was probably, I would call it now, a spiritual void. There was an emptiness deep inside me. And that led me to the first life-changing experience I had, where I came that close to dying on the desert. It freaked me out. I had a heat stroke, thought I was dead. Miraculously, someone saved me on the desert. Came back to Montreal, where I'm from, where I currently live. And all of a sudden, I went from being an atheist to being open-minded to personal development, spiritual development. And about a month later, I was in a bookstore. I met these two people that have these beautiful eyes, calm, clear, centered, focused eyes. And they told me that they were living at what was called the Zen Meditation Center. And they invited me there, and I went there, and there were 40 of them, all with these calm, clear eyes. I said, I want that. So I moved in, became a Zen monk for 9 years until I missed women too much, and then I left the monastery. That's my preamble.
Yeah, but that's so fascinating that life just presented these opportunities to you, and that you took a hold of them. And you realize, this is something I really want right now. But then you knew when it was done, when it was enough.
Yeah, and I've learned from that point on, I learned a very important lesson, even though I've spent many years in my own personal development, and I teach personal development and communication mastery, as you know. I would say one of the most important things I've learned is how to deal with things when they get out of hand, when they're difficult, the challenges, the obstacles. We tend not to talk about that. We tend to talk about the law of attraction and positive thinking, which is all great. I'm all for that. And I teach part of that. But part of what I teach is that. However, what I've learned is what's even more important than positive thinking is self-mastery. Because no matter how much we work on our positive thinking, the reality is we're still going to have thoughts that are not so good. To this day, I woke up, I had some negative thoughts. But the key is not that I have negative thoughts. The key is, am I going to let those negative thoughts victimize me? Or am I going to say, oh, I don't think I want to be negative today. Thank you for sharing. Not really interested. And then I do my inner fitness exercises, get back on track, and get on with my life. So to me, self-mastery became much more important and holistic than just positive thinking.
You know, there are so many books, podcasts, there's so much material, modules that people teach about the law of attraction, right? And mindset, but they don't take action always, right? They don't weave in actually then centering yourself, having this self-mastery that then clarifies your mindset, that leaves room open for the law of attraction, but also the actions that you need to take.
That's very true. And that's why, the expression knowledge is power. I think knowledge is power. And anytime I've been in any seminar and the speaker would say, how many of you believe that knowledge is power? Everybody puts up their hand because that's what you're supposed to say. But I realized later that knowledge is power under certain circumstances. So if you and I want to be medical doctors, we better go to school for 7, 9, or 9 years and learn a lot of knowledge, accumulate a lot of knowledge here to become a successful doctor. However, when it comes, I believe, to personal development, and often in communication mastery, the opposite is true. The heart is power. Mm-hmm. Intuition is power. Presence of mind is power. Patience is power. Assertiveness is power. Listening skills are power. And knowledge helps, but it's not the main thing.
Right.
And so the problem with the self-development world, or the way people treat it, is a lot of people want a quick fix. So they go to the next seminar, or read the next book. I'll get another. This book is going to help me change my life forever. Not to say that the books and the seminars don't change your life. They contribute to it. But a lot of people are looking for that quick fix. If I do this, then I'm going to be enlightened. Well, I learned a long time ago when I became a monk, my main motivation initially was I wanted to become enlightened. What did that mean? I wanted to become calm and free. Well, I meditated, went deep, found out what the Zen zone is. But here it is, 30, 40 years later, I still have negative thoughts. I still have negative feelings. Yes, I'm a lot calmer, more content, more self-mastered, but it doesn't eliminate the emotions, the struggles, the challenges, the negativity. It's just a different way of looking at it. Use that as a means to turn that around and build character. So don't be afraid of the obstacles. Don't become overly attached to them.
Yeah. I was having a conversation earlier today with somebody. We talked about that. We talked about if you're born into dire circumstances where you don't have people who are caring for you, they might have their own issues. You don't have a roof over your head, right? You don't have power, you don't have water, and pulling yourself out of it. How do you change your mindset and know how to use those negative experiences for good and for positive, and to create and build something better, and to not make them your value?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of being a human being. My belief that we come onto this earth for so long, so many years, possibly lifetimes, depending what you believe in. It's another story. But at least in this lifetime, we're born as human beings. I believe it's like a school. We're here to learn, and we have training. And each one of us is given some set of circumstances, people, opportunities. What do we do with them? Yes, some of us have a harder upbringing than others, but I've met people that have had some of the most difficult circumstances as a young person who've turned it around magnificently. And I know other people who were born into multi-million-dollar homes with family that are multi-billionaires and who are miserable. So the common thread here is that there's always something we could take responsibility with. And when it just back to your last question about action, is that's one of the reasons when I developed the program that I've developed, I made sure that it had all the elements in play. It had your inner fitness and the work inside you do, letting go some of the negativity from the past, building up your inner motivational muscles. But it also has to lead to action because we're building out and creating a lifestyle, and ultimately oozes out into all our communications. So that's why I'm a big believer in a holistic approach to personal development, where it's so like an inner multiple vitamin, you're covering everything. So that I remember when I was really young in my first seminar, I went to this workshop. Wow, it was fantastic. I bonded with all these people. I felt free. I felt great. Got home after a weekend of intense experience. And then within a week or two, I was back to my same old way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't able to sustain that. I relied too much on the external people and energy and influences around me. It was good because it showed me that there's more to life than being negative. But of course, working ourselves, we got to work on the inside. Then we need to take action, and we need to communicate. I call it MAC, motivation, action, communication. If we can master those three, wow, life becomes very effortless and fun.
Wow. Well, one thing that I wanted to ask about was you left being a monk, you went back and finished your undergrad, and then you went to get a master's degree.
Correct.
And your master's was in education. I think your thesis absolutely led to your life's work.
Yeah, because what happened is when I went to get my master's and we were learning all these philosophy, Adlerian, Freudian, and all these different experts, so-called experts in psychology, I was open to getting to know more about them. And the one I kept coming back to was Adlerian philosophy, because that was the only person that talked about holistic approach to development. And I guess I don't know a lot about astrology, but I'm an Aquarius, and Aquarians are known to be big picture thinkers. They see the big picture. And so that makes sense to me. And if I'm going to get into the self-development world, I want to make sure that whatever I offer people or help people with, it's going to be complete, certainly practical, but comprehensive enough that it really works. I'll give you an example. When I learned how to meditate, it was so exciting for me to learn how I could change my life through meditation that I became like a preacher to everybody I met. You got to meditate, you got to meditate, you got to meditate. And one of my dear women friends who had a lot of personal issues, she was a great person, but she had some issues. So I tried to get her to meditate. And the more she meditated, the worse it got. Because when she stopped and tried to be silent, all she saw was the anger that was inside her. So I learned that it has to be multifaceted, and it can't just be how I do things. It needs to encompass all the different working parts of self-development and communication mastery so that anybody who comes into it can see what's good for them and what they need and what they don't need. Because I wanted to make sure I don't just become a motivational speaker that people depends on my energy and my enthusiasm for their growth. I just wanted to make sure that that was not going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I want to ask about what that journey was like for you after getting your master's. Did you immediately jump into creating a program and Zen Zone mindset, assertive confidence training, or did you work in the field of education for a while first and then say, you know what, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. This is where my passion and really lies, and this is how I can help people?
Well, really good question. When I finished taking a master's, that coincided with a dear friend of mine, Susie, who passed away about 15 years ago. She was like a twin soulmate of mine. And what happened is I got my master's. I was kind of confused about how to use it or what to do with it. She had a boyfriend who passed away, and she invited me to Vancouver. And so I went to Vancouver and started a new life. And I got a job for about 3 months, and I got sick, and I said, I didn't come here for a job. I came here for a mission. And so I started to say, I have my master's, so I'm going to start coaching people. And so I started, and then I said, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to take someone else's program and run with that, like take a Tony Robbins or a Brian Tracy or I don't even remember some of them at the time, Bob Proctor, whatever it be, or should I get a job in a grade school or high school? And I knew that I wasn't destined to go to the traditional educational route because I was too much of an entrepreneur. I didn't think it would be too structured for me. So at some point I said, I think I'm meant to create my own program. So that's when I looked at all the different programs, and I would meet people one-to-one, and I said, okay, tell me more about your experiences with training and education, because they came to me, they wanted to be better communicators. So they'd say, well, I did this, I did that, I did this. Some of them had spent $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on self-development. And then when I did my assessment on them, they rated themselves 0 to 100% in about 30 categories. Many of them, after all that so-called work they've done on themselves, still procrastinated, still had a busy mind, too busy, monkey mind, still suffered from social anxiety, lack of confidence, and the list goes on. So I think they've spent all this money on this time, training, attending courses, and they're still there. There's something wrong. I don't want to just go out and be a motivator, inspire people, take their money, and then they don't grow. So the light bulb went on to me. I'm sorry I'm going on so long, but your point. One day I realized if you're a physical fitness trainer and I'm 100 pounds overweight in terrible shape and I hire you as a trainer, I don't think you have me to read books or go to raw seminars. You get me on a program, nutritional program, physical fitness program. I work out every day 4 or 5 times a week. And in 2, 3, 4 months, I'm going to be in much greater shape. So I thought, if that's true for physical fitness, the same should be true for inner fitness and communication mastery. And that's why it led me to say, I am going to create a program that's practical, transformational, and it's akin to going into the inner fitness gymnasium and working out my inner part, my communication part, and get the soft skills at a high level, because that's what I need to turn the rest of my life into a successful career and to build successful relationships, both business and personal. It all comes back to the relationship we have with ourselves. So that's what led me to coming up with a comprehensive program.
Nice. And one of the things that I was most attracted to about you and the work that you do was the self-mastery, that you don't want to be a guru. You want people to be their own guru. And so you're giving us the steps to take, the exercises to do, the work to do. But you've also told me you can go back to any of those steps at any point in time when you realize you've gotten off track. And you can go through the same process. Maybe you were doing some work for your past, forgiving people, but you just remembered somebody else who you need to write a letter to, telling them that you forgive them.
Right. That's one of the steps. Step number 2 is letting go of the negative past. But to refer back to what you said about me creating a program where it would become a self-coaching system for life, where that started, where I started to think that that's what I wanted to do, is as I was quite young in my public speaking career, I went to see a lot of speakers and trainers, and they were probably every one of them was pretty great. But what bothered me is that it was very easy for me to see that a lot of people, just like cult members, get into the cult, and the cult leader becomes this object of adoration. And then people will see that without that cult leader, they haven't developed very much, and they rely on the cult leader. Then some people rely on the motivational speaker. They rely on the person who has all this wisdom. And I didn't want to be that, because I realized my ego wanted that. Wow, I'd love to get all this adulation. But down deep, I felt guilty that if that's all I do, I'm not giving people the very best. I want to help them to become their own motivational speaker and their own master of themselves. That's going to be much more fulfilling for me. And that's when I've been through so many things that my ego become less and less relevant. Like, screw it. I don't need to be adulated. I feel pretty good about myself. I just want to do something that works.
Yeah. And what was that like, testing and iterating with your first few clients that you had in, and having that aha moment that, yes, this actually works, or, oh, I need to tinker with it a little bit to make it what it is today?
Oh, well, as I developed the program, there was always a bit of tweaking and changing the order of this or that. Not a lot, but some of it. But as far as when I started to focus on the evaluation first, because I wanted to make sure that before anyone hired me, that I'm not just taking them on because of the money or because I think I'm the only answer to the only right guru in the world.
Right.
I wanted to make sure they needed what I had to offer. So when I started doing the assessment and the evaluation, which I do right away, then they and I could see together where they are on the mind. And then I can tell them, and I said, okay, now you see that no matter what you've done in the past, and it's great, good for you, congratulate yourself. You've taken yourself from here to here, but you really want to get more and more to a high level of self-mastery. And based on your answers, based on what you're telling me, I believe my program could help you. And then they would say, oh, great, tell me how it works. And then I would go through the 9 steps with them. But anytime I did the assessment, I started to realize I know I'm on the right track with this, because I'm focusing less on me laying my trip on them and more talking about where they're at and how we could create a little strategy together, a strategic plan that's actually going to help them going forward and help them to speed up the process of their self-mastery as well.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. That definitely answered any question that I had around the process and that other people might have. I also wanted to ask, because you've had a relationship program, Soul Revolution, and then you've also had one that's more for business people in the business community who want to know how to speak up for themselves in that role. What led you to kind of diversify the offerings? You've also written books for both of these.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret about that. The program that I've developed is really designed and geared toward a whole bunch of categories of things in our life, whether it's you want to find a relationship or a soulmate, whether it's sales performance at your business, whether it's being a better athlete, whatever. The program I realized that I developed, the 9-step program, helps you to go in and develop yourself so that you could take that into the world of business and relationships and sports, etc. So the only thing that I did is I was trying to figure out what was the target audience that I wanted to focus on. My true main passion has always been the concept of soulmates. And my goal was to create the soulmate revolution, which I sort of have now. I just haven't focused on it that much, because I felt, wow, if I could help more and more people, and when I say soulmates, you and I've talked about this, I don't believe that we have one soulmate. We have many soulmates. Soulmates, a deep connection. Yeah, we might have a romantic soulmate or even a twin soul, but we have business soulmates, friends soulmates, whatever. We have a lot of soulmates. It's the deep connection. So if I could help hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world raise the bar of their own inner soulmate, that's where it's got to first focus. If I'm going to attract a very functional soulmate level relationship, I better work on my inner soulmate. So soulmate was always my number one passion. But I'd also been an entrepreneur, spent a lot of years in sales, and I felt, I'm going to focus on that world because I knew that world a bit more. And so I've been focusing most of my career on the entrepreneur. But now that I'm where I'm at now, I have a certification program, like you well know. That's a whole nother story. We'll talk about it another time. But now I'm taking my program out into the world, scaling it through an online course, working with you. And again, we could always talk about it in another session. And if I'm not supposed to say this, you could edit it out, right?
Yeah, but no, keep on going. Because the reality is that conversation that we had, we really connected, because I realized I'm teaching branding from this perspective, personal branding, but I knew that I was missing components. And you have this vast experience. You've built these programs. You've been a Zen monk. So I was like, this is what I was looking for. I like to help people understand who they are from the inside out and be that person. But I was missing all of the different materials, the constructs, the teaching, the learning that you take people through.
Right. You have to remember that the reason I believe it's true, what I do complements what you do. It complements what marketing people do. It complements what coaches in sports do, in that for people to brand themselves effectively, they need to talk to someone like you about a whole bunch of things: their target audience, the colors, the graphics, the impact, the marketing strategies. All that is not what I do. However, even if you have all those in place, you still need the soft skills.
Yeah.
How much confidence have I have? Am I a good leader? If I have people, staff working with me, am I an effective leader? Am I compassionate? Am I understanding? Can I listen well? Can I respond well? Can I inspire? So there are many soft skills that are needed. So my feeling was that whether it's sports performance or whether it's relationship/soulmate or it's entrepreneurship, if I get this in order and my verbal in order, that ripples out into the sports performance, it ripples it out into the relationship performance, and it ripples it out into the sales performance. Because if I'm a confident guy who has a good energy, get on the phone if I'm talking to someone or meet them in person, that energy, that vibe will just ooze out into the communication. And then all I have to learn is a few words, these words or that words that are more effective than other words. So to make a long story short, the program is adapted to personal relationships, sport performance, entrepreneurship, and ultimately other areas. Although I wrote two books, they're similar in many ways, just for a different target audience, so to speak.
Yeah. And that is something that you mentioned. We are doing a rebrand right now because we realize people don't always, when you say Zen Zone, they might have a different idea of what that is. They might be more on the, okay, I'm going to be very peaceful. But a large part of the work you do is the activation. And so this is the official announcement that the Zen activation program is coming out soon. And with that, this podcast, the ZAP podcast, where we'll be talking to people, getting your expertise and thought leaders' expertise who have realized that these are the tools that they need as well to get to where they are.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because often when they hear the word Zen, they think, a lot of people have said to me over the years, Allan, when I met you, I expected to see someone in sandals and a special white shirt and whatever. And really, I'm a jock from way back. I love sports. And so I have a lot of male energy. I'd like to think that I have a nice balance, but I do have a lot of male energy. So when I talk about Zen, I'm not just talking about zenning out.
Right.
Part of it is going deep and getting peaceful with yourself. But unless we take it out into the world, like my first teachers, someone whose name was Ramdas, Richard Alpert, he spent years and years in India fasting, meditating. He had a guru. He was once a professor at Harvard, and he came back to New York, where he was originally from. And his friend says, you know what the trouble is with you? He says, you're too attached to what was called emptiness, because he was so into beyond the physical body, beyond the thinking mind, rest, the Zen zone, so to speak. And everything he did was to get to the Zen zone. And then he realized he became too attached to the Zen zone. So the Zen zone is a good initiator. It's a good foundation. From that, you got to build up your mind. You got to build up the emotions. You got to strengthen your self-confidence. And ultimately, you need to communicate effectively in the world. So that's why I created the Zen Activation Program, which I like to think is a holistic, practical, transformational system that will truly transform every part of our lives.
What have you seen be the biggest change in the clientele that you've worked with, whether it's been the one-on-one or group coaching sessions?
You know, I could list all kinds of specifics, but when I talk and I meet and I keep in touch with a lot of my former clients, it's non-tangible. I hear their voice. I look at them. They're more smiley. They're not as stressed out. They're not as insecure. And most of what I see is non-tangible. It's like, I'm sure that you've been complimented many times on your smile. Am I right?
Yes.
Right. So as you're smiling, we're all looking. Hope there's a lot of people here listening. So I'm looking at your smile, And I'm thinking that smile is communicating 1,000 times more powerfully than any words you could say. Because that smile is your spirit, your soul, your heart out there. If you were shut down, if you were an angry woman and you were victimized by some negativity from your past, and we're not smiling very much.
Yeah.
Communication is first and foremost is a vibe. And so when I see my clients grow, I hear in their voice, yes, I'm happy they're pursuing what they're pursuing. They're achieving success. They're achieving realize. Some of them will call me back because they're having a rough time and they need a bit more review to get them up and running again. That's fine too. I can do that once in a blue moon. But it's their energy, their enthusiasm, their smile, their happiness. And many of them now have tools where they don't need me anymore to keep it going. That's very satisfying.
Yeah. I love that you say it's satisfying because as you mentioned earlier, there's so many self-help groups and business programs. And I think something that people don't see a lot is everything you had to do to build up a program. Even like Tony Robbins, Mel Robbins, like they didn't just have overnight success. They worked really hard to get there, but they always have another course, another book, another idea coming out that is perhaps different. Perhaps it's, attached to what they had before, but people really do get, or even if you look at like Landmark Forum, or I'm not knocking any of these, but I'm just saying people get really invested financially and with their time and their energy in all parts of their lives, and that becomes their lives. And what you're really giving us is an approach to use every day in the lives we already have and make our lives exponentially better.
This idea of taking course after course, when I looked, again, to reiterate, when I looked at becoming a coach and a speaker and a trainer, and I perceived that a lot of people would be using their NLP, things that they've learned or different expertise to close people into another seminar and then upsell them to this up. And there's nothing wrong with taking other courses. But I wanted to come up, even if I end up writing one book as I have, and that book could help many people in the world, I'd rather write one book that's practical and transformational than have 20 books and make it multi-millions and no one really simplifies the process.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a little story which will make it even more clear. This guy Ramdas, who's an amazing man, very wise, talked about a story of one of his gurus was about to die. And all his disciples were around him, and behind was a library of books. And he passed away, and they all went to get the books because they wanted to get all this knowledge. And as they opened each book, it went like this. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. That was all the books.
Oh my gosh.
That was all in, which he was trying to make a point to them. To become enlightened is the most important thing. You get into the Zen zone and then take your Zen zone into the world. In the same way, I realize it's not enough just to teach people a mantra, but by having the 9-step program and a self-coaching system, even if that's all I ever teach, I will be satisfied.
It's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything that I've left out in my line of inquiry today that you want to run?
Well, a lot of people like to ask me, Allan, if you were to think you've trained and coached a lot of people, is there one thing that stands out as the biggest problem that people have? I think that's, maybe you didn't ask that one, I'm not sure.
Yeah, go for it.
There's a whole list. But at the end of the day, most people I've ever coached or trained, the biggest issue they have is they're too hard on themselves, too self-critical. And we live in a world now, and every day almost in the news I hear of the biggest epidemic in the world is loneliness. And loneliness, there is what we call aloneness and loneliness. And when I became a monk, I went from being lonely to learning how to cultivate my feeling and enjoyment of being content and feeling that I could be alone and be happy. And in that aloneness and in that self-confidence, in that belief in yourself, which requires some other skills, which we teach, of course, but overcoming being so hard on yourself, and you start to feel great about yourself, and you start to accept yourself, and you start to believe in yourself, and you start to act on that, that personal power radiates into the world and protects you from being brought down from circumstances around you or people around you. Because the stronger you get, you're like a big tree rooted into the ground, not easily put off into the ditch. Mm-hmm. So the more you go through the program that I teach you, go off, get back, get off, get back, faster and faster until you get to number 6, where you're living in that Zen zone most of the time with self-confidence, self-esteem, belief in yourself. No need to manipulate, no need to control, no need to lay a trip, no need to do anything other than love the person in front of you. And that's what I like to feel, that when people go through my program, they get to where I feel more and more like I'm a walking love machine. I love and I receive love. And if I get pissed off, I get pissed off. Get over it quickly, get back in the zone.
Yeah.
Love is key. That's a whole nother podcast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, we'll have a lot more to cover on the Zen Activation Program podcast, which I'm really excited about launching very soon. When this episode comes out on Your Brand Amplified, we're still maybe a month to a month and a half away from launching our podcast, but the program will be launched and you can reach out to me or to Allan to find out more, get on the wait list. Allan, what is the best place for sending people to for you right now?
Well, if somebody wants to get in touch with me, let's say they want to have a 45-minute evaluation, it's totally complimentary, no expectation. You can get in touch with me. You go to my website, current website, which is allanknight.com, ALLANKNIGHT.com, or email me at allan@allanknight.com. That's probably the best way.
Okay, fantastic.
And if they go to allanknight.com/calendar, they could just set up a time to meet me.
Oh, perfect. And I know you have many, but is there one quote, mantra, verse, motto that resonates with you that you hold really close to your heart every day?
Well, the one probably that's most relevant to me is that when I started developing my program, part of my program, the step number 4 is about inner fitness, working on your mind, your emotion, your spirit, whatever. And when I studied as a Zen monk, I learned a Tibetan chant, Om Mani Padme Hum. So that's a chant that I repeat over and over for 40 years. But because I live in North America, I wanted to create something that the average person who might not find it easy to repeat, a Sanskrit mantra. I came up with an English one. Yeah. So I call it, I'm in the zone. So I use it every day. I'm in the zone, 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 I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone, I'm in. So I do that as part of my inner fitness techniques. So that's one thing I would leave people with that I use. The other thing, a philosophy about my life. Don't let anybody or anything get you off track from living your desired lifestyle. Don't let anybody or anything get you off track from living your desired lifestyle. That's a very important one as well.
Yeah, truly. Wow. Well, I've so enjoyed this conversation and your time, and I'm so excited about what's to come for both of us. And just thank you for your partnership, your friendship, and all of the things that you've put together to help us all get a little better every day, at peace with ourselves, and then being able to show who we truly are on the outside and feel comfortable doing so.
Well, it's an honor. It's been so great meeting you. I look forward to many years of reaching and helping as many people as we can. And your smile will be part of it, because your smile is an extension of what I'm talking about. It's the manifestation of what I'm talking about. That's joy, love, all those wonderful inner qualities just come shining through. As a matter of fact, you don't even have to do a program. Just smile and get their Visa and their MasterCard. That's it. No problem.
That's hilarious, but I appreciate that. And I truly am passionate about everything I do, and going through the process of the program has helped me move even further along where I know what I'm truly supposed to be.
It's just the beginning.
It is. And I want to thank everybody who's watching or listening to this episode. Again, this is an episode on Your Brand Amplified, but it's also the very first episode of the Zen Activation Program podcast with Allan Knight and Annika Jackson. We have a lot more amazing information We'll be bringing you some solo, or I guess dual episodes, as well as bringing on guests who are on their journey. So with that, thank you again. Make sure to reach out to us to learn more. And I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert to tell their story. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrandamplified.com.